Listening to my voice, your brain is telling you hundreds of lies. Not malicious lies, not the kind other people tell you. No, these are survival lies. A sophisticated system of deception that your subconscious uses every second to keep you alive. Imagine this. What if your brain stopped lying to you for just one day? What if you saw the world as it really is, without filters, without illusions, without protective mechanisms? You wouldn't survive an hour. Tonight we're going to uncover the darkest secret of human consciousness. Your entire reality is a carefully constructed lie, created by your brain to prevent you from going insane from the truth. Close your eyes, relax, and prepare for a journey through 100 levels of lies that make your life possible. Because what you're about to hear will forever change your understanding of reality. In American culture, we worship truth, transparency, authenticity. We say things like, "The truth will set you free," and "Honesty is the best policy." But what if the opposite is true? What if lies are what keep you free, and honesty would destroy you? If you're ready to discover how deep the rabbit hole of your own self-deception goes, then let us begin this descent into the lies that keep you alive. Every morning you wake up with absolute certainty that you're in charge of your life. You make decisions, choose directions, plan your future. You believe that if you work hard enough, think smart enough, try hard enough, you can shape your destiny. This belief in control is the first and most crucial lie your brain tells you every single day. Because the truth is, you control maybe 5% of what happens in your life. The other 95% is determined by randomness, other people's decisions, economic forces beyond your comprehension, genetics you didn't choose, accidents you can't predict, and 1,000 other variables completely outside your influence. But your brain cannot let you know this. Full awareness of your powerlessness would be paralyzing. It would lead to what psychologists call learned helplessness, a state so debilitating that people literally lie down and die. So your unconscious mind creates the illusion of control, a powerful lie that gets you out of bed every morning. This lie works through multiple mechanisms. When something good happens, your brain immediately finds ways to credit your actions. I got promoted because I worked overtime. I found love because I put myself out there. I'm healthy because I eat right and exercise. But when something bad happens, your brain also finds ways to preserve the illusion of control. If I had been more careful, this wouldn't have happened. I should have seen this coming. Next time I'll do things differently. Even your failures become evidence that you have control. Because if you can prevent them, that means you can control the outcome. Think about how you plan your day. You make to-do lists, set goals, create schedules. Your brain convinces you that these plans have power over reality. But how often does your day go exactly as planned? Almost never. Yet you keep planning, because the act of planning maintains the illusion of control. The very process of scheduling makes you feel like you're commanding the future, even when the future is already determined by factors you don't even know exist. Your brain also creates the control lie through retrospective rewriting. When you remember past events, memory automatically edits them to show more of your conscious decisions and less randomness. You remember deciding to move to a new city, but forget that the decision was forced by circumstances beyond your control. You remember choosing your career, but forget that your options were limited by factors outside your power. Memory constantly rewrites your history to make you appear more in control, more responsible for your fate than you actually were. But the deepest control lie concerns your own thoughts and emotions. You believe you can control your feelings, direct your thoughts, manage your reactions. Try right now not to think about a white elephant. Try to stop feeling anxious through willpower alone. Try to force yourself to love someone you don't love. You can't. Your thoughts and emotions arise automatically, governed by processes far beyond your conscious control. But your brain can't let you fully realize this because awareness of your lack of control over your own inner world is psychologically devastating. So it creates the lie that you have control, even when evidence to the contrary surrounds you every day. This lie is supported socially too. American culture is built on the myth of individual responsibility. You're the master of your destiny. It all depends on you. If you try hard enough, you can achieve anything. These social lies reinforce the personal lie of control. Society can't function if people realize the extent of their powerlessness, so culture constantly feeds the illusion of control through success stories, motivational speeches, and the ideology of personal achievement. But here's what makes this lie particularly sophisticated: it partially works. The illusion of control actually gives you more control. When you believe you can influence outcomes, you put in more effort. When you feel responsible for your life, you make more proactive decisions. The control lie becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. By believing in it, you act as if you have control, and that behavior partially creates control. Not complete control, not absolute control, but enough control to survive and sometimes thrive. Your brain evolved to prefer useful lies over destructive truths. The illusion of control is useful for survival, even when it doesn't correspond to reality. It motivates action, reduces anxiety, maintains mental health, and enables planning. The truth, that you're mostly drifting in an ocean of randomness, would be accurate, but lethal. So your brain chooses the lie that keeps you alive. Consider your morning routine. You believe you're making dozens of conscious choices: what to wear, what to eat, which route to take to work. But neuroscience shows that most of these decisions are made by unconscious processes before you're aware of them. You're not choosing, you're experiencing the illusion of choice. Even this illusion serves a purpose. It makes you feel like an agent rather than a victim, a driver rather than a passenger. It preserves your sense of dignity and autonomy in a universe that doesn't care about your preferences. The control fantasy extends to your relationships too. You believe you can control how people see you, how they react to you, whether they like or respect you. But other people's responses to you are determined by their own psychological processes, past experiences, current moods, and countless factors that have nothing to do with your behavior. You might be the most charming person in the world, but if someone is having a bad day or was recently hurt by someone who reminds them of you, they'll respond negatively regardless of what you do. Your brain hides this reality because accepting your lack of control over other people's perceptions would make social interaction too anxiety-provoking to attempt. The control lie even shapes how you think about global events: wars, economic crashes, natural disasters. Your brain convinces you that if the right people had made the right decisions, these things could have been prevented or controlled. But complex systems like societies, economies, and climates operate according to chaotic dynamics that no human intelligence can fully predict or control. The idea that any individual or group could manage these systems is another comforting illusion. Yet this illusion motivates political engagement, social activism, and attempts to solve collective problems. Even if control is mostly an illusion, the belief in control creates the conditions for whatever limited influence humans actually can have. This is the first level of survival lies, the great control fantasy that allows you to feel like an agent in a world where agency is largely an illusion. Deep in your consciousness lives an unshakable belief that your life has meaning, that your struggles serve a purpose, your experiences matter, your existence contributes to something greater than yourself. This belief in inherent meaning is so fundamental that you've never seriously questioned it, but it's one of the most elaborate lies your brain tells you. The truth your brain protects you from is this: the universe is indifferent to your existence. There's no cosmic plan, no predetermined purpose, no grand narrative in which you play a meaningful role. You're a temporary arrangement of atoms that briefly achieved consciousness before returning to cosmic dust. But your brain cannot let you live with full awareness of this meaninglessness. Confronting the arbitrary nature of existence would lead to what philosophers call existential crisis, a psychological breakdown so severe it can result in complete withdrawal from life. So your unconscious mind constructs an elaborate meaning-making system. This system works through pattern recognition. Your brain is constantly scanning for connections, significance, and purpose in random events. When your grandmother dies the day before an important exam, your brain creates a story about how she's watching over you, or testing your strength. When you narrowly avoid an accident, it becomes a sign or evidence of your purpose in life. These aren't conscious fabrications. They feel absolutely real because your brain generates them automatically, below the threshold of awareness. The meaning mirage also operates through what psychologists call narrative coherence. Your brain takes the random, chaotic events of your life and weaves them into a coherent story, with themes, lessons, and character development. Everything happens for a reason. This is all part of God's plan. I'm being prepared for something greater. But life isn't a story. It's a series of unconnected events that only appear meaningful when viewed through the lens of retrospective storytelling. American culture particularly reinforces the meaning mirage through the hero's journey narrative. We're taught that everyone has a special destiny, a unique calling, a personal mission to fulfill. Movies, books, and motivational speakers constantly reinforce the idea that if you just discover your true purpose, everything will make sense. This cultural programming makes the meaning mirage even more compelling. You're not just creating personal meaning. You're participating in a collective delusion that meaning is discoverable rather than constructed. Your brain also creates meaning through suffering. When bad things happen, it immediately begins generating explanations for why this pain is necessary, valuable, or instructive. This is making me stronger. I needed to learn this lesson. God is testing my faith. But most suffering serves no purpose. It doesn't make you stronger, wiser, or more compassionate. It just hurts. The child dying of cancer isn't learning valuable lessons. The family losing their home in a hurricane isn't being prepared for greatness. Sometimes pain is just meaningless cruelty. Your brain cannot accept this, so it manufactures purpose where none exists. The meaning mirage extends to your career and achievements. You believe your work contributes to human progress, that your skills serve society, that your accomplishments leave lasting value. But most jobs are ultimately arbitrary. They exist because of historical accidents, economic structures, and social conventions that could easily be different. If you'd been born in a different century, your entire professional identity wouldn't exist. The work that feels so important to you might be completely irrelevant to human flourishing. Yet your brain convinces you that what you do matters deeply. Even your relationships are infused with manufactured meaning. Your brain tells you that you and your partner are meant to be together, that your friendships are written in the stars, that your family bonds represent profound spiritual connections. But relationships form through proximity, shared circumstances, chemical compatibility, and social convenience. The soulmate you met at college might have been someone entirely different if you'd attended a different school. The meaning you feel in relationships is real to you, but it's not inherent in the universe. Your brain also creates meaning through identification with causes greater than yourself. Politics, religion, social movements, these give you the sense that your individual life serves a larger purpose. You're not just living for yourself, you're fighting for justice, serving God, building a better future. But these causes are also human constructions. The political ideology you find so meaningful might seem absurd to someone from a different culture or historical period. The religion that gives your life purpose is one of thousands that humans have invented and abandoned. The meaning you derive from these affiliations is psychologically real, but cosmically arbitrary. Perhaps the most sophisticated meaning creation mechanism is what psychologists call post-traumatic growth, the process by which your brain transforms painful experiences into sources of meaning and wisdom. I wouldn't be who I am today without that experience. It all happened for a reason. I'm grateful for the struggle because it taught me so much. This transformation isn't conscious self-deception. It's an automatic psychological process that protects you from despair. Your brain literally rewrites traumatic experiences to make them feel meaningful rather than random. But here's the paradox. Even though meaning is constructed rather than discovered, it's still functionally necessary. Humans require meaning to function. We need to believe our lives matter, our choices have consequences, our existence serves some purpose. The meaning mirage isn't a bug in human psychology. It's a feature. It motivates action, creates resilience, enables cooperation, and makes suffering bearable. Without it, humans would likely collapse into nihilistic despair. So your brain creates meaning, not because it's true, but because it's useful. The stories you tell yourself about why you're here and what you're supposed to do aren't discoveries. They're inventions that keep you alive and functioning. This doesn't make meaning less valuable. A constructed purpose can be just as motivating as an inherent one. A chosen mission can be just as fulfilling as a predetermined destiny. The lie isn't that your life has meaning. The lie is that this meaning comes from outside yourself, rather than from your own mind's incredible capacity to create significance from randomness. This is the second level of survival lies, the meaning mirage that transforms a purposeless existence into a meaningful adventure. You wake up every day believing you're moving forward, that yesterday was less enlightened than today, that tomorrow will be better than today, that humanity is ascending some great ladder of progress, and your personal development is part of this grand upward trajectory. This belief in inevitable progress is one of the most American of all lies, and one of the most necessary. The truth is that progress is largely an illusion. Human beings don't steadily improve over time. You don't become consistently wiser, kinder, or more capable as you age. Instead, you cycle through the same patterns, make the same mistakes, struggle with the same fundamental problems that have plagued humans for millennia. But your brain cannot let you see this cyclical reality. Awareness that life is mostly repetition and regression would be crushing to motivation and mental health. So it creates the illusion of forward movement through selective memory and creative interpretation. When you look back at your past, your brain automatically focuses on areas where you've changed for the better. It remembers your old confusions, naivety, and mistakes, then contrasts them with your current wisdom. But it forgets or minimizes the capabilities you've lost, the innocence you've sacrificed, the energy you've depleted. Maybe you were more spontaneous in your youth, more open to experience, more capable of joy, but your brain reframes these qualities as immaturity and their loss as development. Maybe you used to spend hours lost in creative flow, unconcerned with practical matters. But now your brain calls this irresponsibility, and your current inability to access that state maturity. Memory constantly rewrites your history to look like a story of progress, even when it's actually a story of trade-offs and losses. American culture supercharges this illusion through its fundamental mythology. We believe that each generation surpasses the previous one, that technology makes life better, that social problems get solved over time. Tomorrow will be better than today isn't just personal hope, it's national ideology. But human history is full of cycles, collapses, and regressions. The Romans thought they were the pinnacle of civilization. The Victorians believed they were morally superior to all previous generations. Every era thinks it represents the highest point of human development. Yet civilizations fall, knowledge gets lost, moral progress reverses. The 20th century, despite unprecedented technological advancement, was also the most violent in human history. Progress in one area often creates problems in others. Your brain hides this pattern from you because accepting the cyclical nature of history would undermine your sense of participating in something meaningful and directional. The progress illusion operates powerfully in personal development. The entire self-help industry is built on the promise of continuous improvement. Every book, course, and therapy session promises to make you better than you were before. You've probably read dozens of books about becoming more productive, more confident, more successful, more enlightened. But look honestly at people who've been actively working on themselves for years. Have they fundamentally transformed? Or have they mostly rearranged their problems, traded old anxieties for new ones, developed sophisticated ways of thinking about the same core issues? Personal growth often involves changing rather than improving. You might become less anxious but more cynical, more confident but less sensitive, more successful but less authentic. Your brain interprets any change as progress, but change isn't always advancement. The progress illusion also affects how you view relationships. You believe your connections with people should deepen over time, that conflicts should lead to greater understanding, that love should grow stronger through experience. But relationships are also cyclical. Periods of closeness alternate with distance. Moments of understanding give way to confusion. Love waxes and wanes based on circumstances, moods, and life phases that neither partner controls. Your brain tries to interpret these cycles as stages of relationship development, but often they're just the natural rhythm of human connection. Not every relationship difficulty is a growth opportunity. Sometimes people just have bad days, incompatible needs, or different ways of processing the world. Technology creates a particularly convincing progress illusion. Every new device, app, or platform promises to make life easier, more efficient, more connected. And in narrow ways, they often do. You can communicate instantly with people across the globe, access vast amounts of information, automate routine tasks. But has technology made humans fundamentally happier, wiser, or more fulfilled? Depression and anxiety rates have skyrocketed alongside technological advancement. Social media connected us but also isolated us. Information abundance created confusion rather than clarity. Your brain focuses on technology's benefits while minimizing its costs, maintaining the illusion that innovation equals improvement. The progress illusion becomes dangerous when it prevents you from appreciating what you have now. You're always focused on the next level, the next achievement, the next version of yourself. This future orientation makes it impossible to find satisfaction in present circumstances. You think happiness lies just around the corner, after the next promotion, relationship, move, or personal breakthrough. But when you reach those milestones, the happiness they promise either doesn't materialize or quickly fades, and your brain simply projects fulfillment onto the next goal. This creates what psychologists call the hedonic treadmill. You're always running toward satisfaction but never reaching it because the target keeps moving. Perhaps the deepest progress illusion concerns wisdom. Your brain convinces you that experience automatically translates into understanding, that aging brings insight, that suffering teaches valuable lessons. But experience can make you more cynical rather than wiser. Age can bring rigidity rather than flexibility. Suffering can traumatize rather than enlighten. Children sometimes display profound wisdom that adults have lost. Young people can see truths that become invisible with experience. Innocence is sometimes closer to reality than sophistication. The truth is that wisdom doesn't accumulate linearly. It comes and goes, depending on circumstances, health, relationships, and countless other factors. You might be wiser about some things and more foolish about others than you were decades ago. Your brain cannot accept this because it threatens your sense of development and meaning, so it maintains the illusion that you're on an upward trajectory, always becoming a better version of yourself. But maybe the real wisdom lies in accepting that life is more like a dance than a march, full of rhythm, repetition, and cyclical movement rather than linear progression. This is the third level of survival lies, the progress illusion that makes each day feel like a step forward in a life that might actually be going in circles. Buried deep in your psyche lies one of the most comforting and simultaneously destructive lies, the belief that the world is fundamentally fair, that good people get good things, bad people get bad things, and there's some cosmic system of justice that eventually balances the scales. This belief in a fair world is so essential to your psychological stability that your brain will twist reality to maintain it. The truth is that the world is fundamentally unfair. Good people suffer while evil people prosper. Children are punished for crimes they didn't commit. The innocent are destroyed while the guilty escape consequences. Randomness determines more outcomes than justice ever will. But your brain cannot let you live with full awareness of this unfairness. So it creates an elaborate system of cognitive illusions that preserve the belief in cosmic justice. When something good happens, your brain immediately finds ways to explain it through merit. She got promoted because she's talented. He found love because he's a good person. They're wealthy because they worked hard. When something bad happens, your brain also finds ways to maintain the fairness fiction. She got sick because she didn't take care of herself. He lost his job because he wasn't dedicated enough. They were robbed because they were careless. This system of explanation is called victim blaming, but it's not malicious. It's defensive. Your brain blames victims to preserve the illusion that bad things happen for reasons, not randomly. Because if bad things are random, they could happen to you. And that thought is unbearable. American culture particularly reinforces the fairness fiction through what sociologists call the just world hypothesis. We believe that hard work leads to success, that virtue is rewarded, that what goes around comes around. This belief is so fundamental to American ideology that questioning it feels unpatriotic. But look at any elementary school playground. The nicest kids don't automatically have the most friends. The smartest kids don't always get the best grades. The most athletic kids don't necessarily win every game. Unfairness is visible everywhere, even among children who haven't yet learned to hide it. Your brain also maintains the fairness fiction through selective attention. It notices cases where justice prevails and ignores cases where it doesn't. When a corrupt politician finally goes to jail, this confirms your belief in cosmic justice. When dozens of other corrupt politicians continue to prosper, your brain doesn't register this as evidence against fairness, it just ignores it. When a good person receives recognition, this proves the world is fair. When thousands of good people remain unnoticed, this doesn't disprove your belief in justice. It's simply filtered out of awareness. Your brain works like a prosecutor building a case for a predetermined verdict. It collects evidence of fairness and dismisses evidence of unfairness. Religion and philosophical systems support this lie on a cultural level. Concepts of karma, divine justice, and afterlife rewards are all ways to preserve belief in fairness, despite obvious unfairness. If not in this life, then the next. If not on earth, then in heaven. Everything makes sense from a broader perspective we can't see. These beliefs aren't based on evidence. They're based on psychological necessity to maintain the fairness illusion. Your brain also uses temporal lies to preserve belief in justice. It convinces you that fairness is slow but inevitable. Eventually, everyone gets what they deserve. What goes around comes around. Time reveals all truths. But time doesn't reveal truth. Time just passes. Much injustice remains unresolved. Much evil goes unpunished. Much good goes unrewarded. Death arrives before cosmic justice has time to work. Your brain hides this reality by extending the timeline of justice to infinity. If justice doesn't happen today, it will happen tomorrow. If not tomorrow, then next year. If not in this life, then the next. If not in the visible world, then the invisible one. The fairness fiction also affects how you think about your own life. When good things happen to you, you feel you've earned them. When bad things happen, you search for ways to explain them through your mistakes or shortcomings. This system of self-blame and self-congratulation maintains the illusion that your life is fair, that you get what you deserve. But most of what happens to you is outside your control and unrelated to your merit. You were born into a specific family, country, and time period. These factors determined most of your opportunities and limitations. You didn't choose your genes, intelligence, temperament, or natural talents. A huge portion of your success or failure is determined by circumstances of birth that are completely random. But your brain can't let you realize this because it would destroy your motivation to try. The fairness fiction becomes particularly twisted when applied to global inequality. Your brain convinces you that wealthy people somehow deserve their wealth and poor people deserve their poverty. This allows you to feel comfortable with vast disparities in living conditions. If the rich earn their riches and the poor earn their poverty, then inequality is just and you don't need to feel guilty or obligated to change anything. But most wealth and poverty is determined by factors outside individual control: inheritance, economic cycles, political decisions, technological changes, geographic luck, timing, and countless other variables. Your brain hides this reality because awareness of unfair distribution of resources threatens your comfort and sense of security. The deepest fairness fiction concerns suffering. Your brain tells you that pain serves a purpose, teaches lessons, makes you stronger, builds character. Everything happens for a reason. God doesn't give you more than you can handle. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. But most suffering is meaningless. It doesn't teach valuable lessons or make people better. It just causes pain and destroys lives. The teenager dying in a car accident doesn't gain wisdom from the experience. The family losing everything in a natural disaster doesn't become stronger. The person battling mental illness doesn't develop character through their struggle. Your brain creates meaning in meaningless suffering because the alternative, Accepting that pain often serves no purpose is too devastating to bear. The fairness fiction is a protective system that allows you to function in a world that is fundamentally unjust. It gives you hope, motivation, and a sense of control in situations where you have none. But this lie also has a dark side. It makes you blame victims, ignore injustice, and accept inequality as natural and deserved. This is the fourth level of survival lies, the fairness fiction that protects you from the horror of randomness by pretending the universe cares about justice. You live every day with the absolute conviction that you are special, not just different, everyone knows they're different, but uniquely important, irreplaceably valuable, cosmically significant. Your thoughts, experiences, and perspective feel so vivid and meaningful to you that it's impossible to imagine they're not equally important to the universe. This belief in your own specialness is one of the most essential and most delusional lies your brain tells you. The truth is that you're one of 8 billion people currently alive, each of whom feels exactly as special and important as you do. You're also one of roughly 100 billion humans who have ever lived, most of whom are completely forgotten. Your thoughts, feelings, and experiences, no matter how profound they seem to you, are variations on themes that have been repeated billions of times before. But your brain cannot let you fully grasp this cosmic ordinariness. Complete awareness of your statistical insignificance would be psychologically devastating, so it creates the uniqueness delusion through several sophisticated mechanisms. First, your brain gives you privileged access to your own inner experience. You experience your thoughts from the inside, with full emotional color and personal significance. But you only observe other people's thoughts from the outside, through their words and actions. This creates the illusion that your inner life is richer, more complex, and more meaningful than everyone else's. You know the full depth of your own anxiety, but you only see others' calm exteriors. You experience the complexity of your own motivations, but you only observe others' simple behaviors. You feel the profound meaning in your own struggles, but others' difficulties seem ordinary or self-inflicted. This asymmetry of access makes your experience feel uniquely important. Second, your brain creates the uniqueness delusion through what psychologists call the protagonist effect. In the story of your life, you are always the main character. Every event is filtered through its impact on you. Other people exist primarily as supporting characters in your narrative. When you walk into a room, you assume people notice you, judge you, think about you. When something goes wrong, you immediately consider how it affects you. When you hear news, you instinctively relate it to your own situation. This isn't narcissism. It's the natural result of experiencing the world from a single point of consciousness. But it creates the illusion that you're more central to reality than you actually are. American culture particularly reinforces the uniqueness delusion through its emphasis on individualism. We're taught that everyone has a special talent, a unique calling, a personal destiny to fulfill. You're one of a kind. There's nobody else like you. You have something special to offer the world. These messages feel good, but they're mathematically impossible. If everyone is uniquely special, then being special becomes ordinary. If everyone has a unique gift, then having a gift is unremarkable. Your brain also maintains the uniqueness delusion through selective comparison. When you compare yourself to others, you unconsciously choose comparisons that make you feel special. You compare your intelligence to people less smart, your kindness to people less caring, your struggles to people who seem to have it easier. You rarely compare your worst qualities to others' best qualities, or your easiest circumstances to others' hardest challenges. Your brain automatically skews comparisons in your favor to preserve the sense of being special. The uniqueness delusion extends to your problems and suffering. Your brain convinces you that your particular combination of difficulties is unprecedented, that nobody has ever struggled quite the way you're struggling. But human suffering falls into remarkably predictable patterns. The heartbreak you're experiencing feels unique to you, but it's been felt by millions of people in almost identical ways. The anxiety that seems so personal and specific is actually a common human experience that follows well-documented patterns. Your brain hides this universality because accepting that your suffering is ordinary would make it feel less meaningful. Technology amplifies the uniqueness delusion through social media. Platforms are designed to make you feel like the star of your own show, with followers, likes, and comments that seem to confirm your special status. You curate the most interesting moments of your life and present them to an audience, creating the illusion that your existence is uniquely worth documenting. But everyone else is doing the same thing. Everyone else feels like the star of their own show. Your social media presence isn't evidence of your specialness. It's evidence of your participation in a collective delusion of importance. The uniqueness delusion also affects how you think about your relationships. You believe that your connection with your partner is unlike any other, that your friendship dynamics are uniquely meaningful, that your family relationships are specially complex or significant. But relationship patterns are remarkably consistent across cultures and time periods. The conflicts you have with your spouse echo arguments that have happened in millions of other relationships. The dynamics in your friend group follow predictable social patterns that have been studied extensively by researchers. Your brain creates the illusion of uniqueness by focusing on surface differences while ignoring underlying similarities. Perhaps the most sophisticated aspect of the uniqueness delusion concerns your thoughts and ideas. You believe that your perspective on life, your insights, your creative ideas are original and valuable. When you have what feels like a profound realization, your brain convinces you that few others have reached this level of understanding. But almost every thought you've ever had has been thought by countless others. The philosophical insights that feel so personal to you have been explored by thinkers throughout history. The creative ideas that seem so original are usually combinations of existing concepts that others have also discovered. Your brain hides this repetition because recognizing the ordinariness of your thoughts would diminish your sense of intellectual specialness. The uniqueness delusion serves several important psychological functions. It motivates you to invest energy in your own development and well-being. It makes your experiences feel meaningful and worth having. It creates the self-regard necessary to form relationships and pursue goals. Without it, you might conclude that nothing you do matters since countless others have done similar things. You might lose motivation to try, create, or connect with others. But the uniqueness delusion also has costs. It makes you less empathetic to others' experiences, since you assume they're not struggling as meaningfully as you are. It creates unrealistic expectations about your impact on the world. It can lead to narcissistic behavior when the delusion becomes too extreme. The truth is that you're simultaneously utterly ordinary and completely irreplaceable. Ordinary because your patterns of thought, feeling, and behavior are variations on universal human themes. Irreplaceable because the exact combination of factors that created you will never occur again. This is the fifth level of survival lies. The uniqueness delusion that makes you feel cosmically important in a universe where importance is a human invention. Every day you navigate the world with confidence that you understand how things work. You know why the sun rises, how your phone connects to the internet, what makes people behave the way they do. This sense of understanding feels so natural that you never question it. But it's one of the most pervasive illusions your brain creates. The truth is that your understanding of most things is shallow, fragmented, and often completely wrong. You live in a world that seems comprehensible but is actually full of mysteries you don't even realize exist. Try explaining how a zipper works, or how your car engine converts gasoline into motion, or why some people develop depression while others don't. Most people think they understand these things until they're asked to explain the details. Then it becomes obvious that their understanding is an illusion. Your brain creates the sense of understanding through familiarity. When you've seen or heard something many times, it starts to feel comprehensible. Familiar words seem full of meaning. Familiar processes seem logical. Familiar ideas seem obvious. But familiarity isn't understanding. It's just habituation to certain patterns of information. Your brain also creates the understanding illusion through simplification. It takes complex, multifaceted phenomena and turns them into simple cause and effect stories. The economy is bad because of government policies. He acts that way because of his childhood. She succeeded because she worked hard. These simplified explanations feel like understanding, but they ignore the vast complexity of real causal networks. Any event is the result of countless interacting factors, most of which are invisible and unknown. Your brain can't handle this complexity, so it creates the illusion of simplicity and comprehensibility. Language particularly contributes to the understanding illusion. When you have a word for something, it feels like you understand that phenomenon. Gravity explains why things fall. Depression explains why he's sad. Love explains why they're together. But these words don't explain, they just label. Gravity is a name for an observed phenomenon, not an explanation of its mechanism. Depression is a label for a cluster of symptoms, not an explanation of their cause. Your brain confuses naming with understanding, creating a sense of knowledge where there's only vocabulary. The understanding illusion is particularly strong in areas that affect you personally. You think you understand your own motivations, your family dynamics, your work environment. You can explain why you made certain decisions, why your relationships have certain patterns, why your career has developed as it has. But most of the forces shaping your life operate below conscious awareness. Your actual motivations are often hidden from yourself. Your relationship patterns are influenced by unconscious psychological processes. Your career path has been shaped by economic forces, cultural trends, and random opportunities that you don't fully comprehend. When you explain your life to yourself or others, you're creating rational stories that may have little connection to the actual causal factors involved. American culture particularly reinforces the understanding illusion through its faith in expertise and information. We believe that for every problem, there's an expert who understands the solution. For every question, there's information that provides the answer. But even experts are subject to the understanding illusion. The more someone knows about a subject, the more they realize how much they don't know. But society interprets expertise as complete understanding, and experts often succumb to the temptation to appear more certain than they actually are. This leads to expert predictions that turn out wrong, scientific theories that get overturned, and medical treatments that are later recognized as harmful. Your brain hides the uncertainty of expert knowledge because it threatens your sense of safety and predictability. The understanding illusion is especially powerful when it comes to human behavior. You think you understand why people vote the way they do, choose the partners they choose, make the decisions they make. You have theories about personality, motivation, and social dynamics that feel like genuine insight. But human behavior is determined by incredibly complex interactions of genetics, upbringing, culture, hormones, mood, recent experiences, and thousands of other factors. Most of these influences are unconscious and invisible, even to the person whose behavior you're trying to understand. When someone explains their behavior, they're offering a rational story that may bear little resemblance to the actual causes. And when you observe others' behavior, you're creating your own stories based on limited information and your own psychological projections. But these stories give you the sense of understanding human nature that's necessary for social functioning. Technology creates a particularly convincing understanding illusion. You use devices every day that operate through principles you don't understand. Your smartphone involves quantum mechanics. Your GPS relies on Einstein's relativity. Your internet connection depends on protocols that took decades to develop. But because these technologies work reliably, your brain treats them as understood. You don't need to comprehend how they work to feel like you understand them. This creates a false sense of living in a comprehensible world when you're actually surrounded by incomprehensible complexity that you've learned to take for granted. The understanding illusion also affects how you process new information. Your brain convinces you that you're open to learning, that you update your beliefs when presented with evidence. But actually, you process new information through filters of existing beliefs, prejudices, and emotional investments. Information that confirms what you already think is accepted quickly and uncritically. Information that challenges your beliefs is subjected to skeptical analysis and often rejected for technical reasons. You're not seeking truth. You're defending your existing sense of understanding against threatening facts. Perhaps the deepest understanding illusion concerns yourself. You believe you understand your own mind, your fears, desires, motivations, and patterns. You can explain why you feel the way you feel and do the things you do, but most of your mental life happens below conscious awareness. Your real motivations are often mysterious to yourself. Your emotions arise from sources you don't understand. Your decisions are made by processes you can't access. When you explain your inner life to yourself or others, you're creating stories that feel true, but may be completely fabricated. The understanding illusion protects you from the anxiety of living in a mysterious world, but it also makes you vulnerable to overconfidence, poor decisions, and manipulation by those who exploit your false sense of comprehension. This is the sixth level of survival lies, the understanding illusion that hides an ocean of mystery behind a thin veneer of explanations. You are absolutely convinced that you think rationally, that you weigh evidence, follow logic, make decisions based on facts rather than feelings. You see yourself as someone who can set aside emotions and analyze situations objectively. This belief in your own rationality is one of the most persistent and dangerous illusions your brain creates. The truth is that you make decisions emotionally first, then use rationality to justify them afterward. Your brain feels the right answer, then invents logical reasons why that answer is correct. This process happens so quickly and smoothly that you genuinely believe you arrived at your conclusion through logical thinking. But neuroscience shows that emotional centers of the brain activate milliseconds before logical centers. Your unconscious already knows the answer before your conscious mind starts thinking about the problem. Imagine you're offered 2 job opportunities. One pays more, but requires relocating. The other pays less, but lets you stay in your city. You think you're rationally weighing pros and cons, salary versus family, career opportunities versus stability. But actually, your unconscious has already decided based on what feels right. If deep down you fear change, you'll find rational reasons to stay. If you crave adventure, you'll find logical arguments for moving. Your mind isn't seeking truth. It's seeking justification for what your emotions have already decided. This lie is maintained because your brain hides the emotional basis of your decisions from you. It presents you only with the final product of rationalization, not showing you the emotional decision-making process that happened behind the scenes. You remember thinking logically about choices, but you don't remember the emotional reaction that determined the direction of that thinking. Your brain also creates the myth of objectivity. It convinces you that you see facts as they are, without bias or distortion, that your perception of reality is accurate and impartial. But every fact that reaches your consciousness has already been filtered through unconscious systems of prejudice, expectation, and emotional association. You never see raw facts, only interpreted, processed, emotionally colored versions of facts. When 2 people look at the same situation and see completely different things, it's not because one of them is irrational. It's because each has a different system of emotional filters that determines which aspects of the situation they notice and how they interpret them. Your brain also lies to you about the consistency of your beliefs. It creates the illusion that your opinions form a logical, coherent system of views, that if you believe A and B, you logically must believe C. But your beliefs don't form a logical system. They form an emotional ecosystem, where each belief serves a psychological function, regardless of its logical compatibility with other beliefs. You can simultaneously believe contradictory things if each serves different emotional needs. Your brain simply keeps contradictory beliefs isolated from each other to prevent cognitive dissonance. When you're forced to confront a contradiction in your beliefs, your brain doesn't correct the logical error. Instead, it invents creative explanations for why the contradiction isn't really a contradiction. The rationality myth also manifests in how you process new information. Your brain tells you that you're open to new ideas, that you're willing to change your mind when presented with sufficient evidence. But actually, your brain processes new information through confirmation bias. Information that supports your existing beliefs is accepted quickly and uncritically. Information that contradicts your beliefs is subjected to skeptical analysis and often rejected for technical reasons. You're not seeking truth. You're defending existing beliefs against threatening facts. This system works so effectively that people with diametrically opposed views can look at the same data and find confirmation for their positions. Each sees what they want to see and ignores what threatens their worldview. American culture particularly reinforces the rationality myth through its worship of logic, science, and analytical thinking. We believe that rational people should be able to reach the same conclusions when presented with the same facts. When people disagree, we assume one side is being irrational. But disagreement often isn't about rationality. It's about different emotional starting points leading to different interpretations of the same information. Your brain also creates the illusion of expertise. It convinces you that you're competent to judge complex issues that require years of specialized study, that your opinion about climate change, economic policy, or medical procedures has equal value to experts' opinions. This illusion of competence protects your ego from admitting your own ignorance. Acknowledging that you don't understand most important issues would mean accepting your dependence on others for understanding the world. So your brain creates a sense of understanding where there's only superficial familiarity. It transforms fragments of information into feelings of expertise, opinions into facts, preferences into truths. The deepest rationality myth concerns the nature of truth itself. Your brain tells you that truth is what corresponds to facts, that it can be objectively determined, that things are either right or wrong. But for your brain, truth is what's useful for survival, what reduces anxiety, what maintains social connections, what preserves self-esteem. Facts are secondary to these psychological functions. Your brain will sacrifice factual accuracy for emotional comfort every time. It prefers useful lies to inconvenient truths. This doesn't mean rational thinking is impossible. It means it's not your default mode of thinking. Rationality is a skill that requires constant practice and self-control. It requires recognizing that your initial reactions are emotional, that your logical arguments are often rationalizations, that your perception of facts is distorted by prejudices. But your brain doesn't want you to realize this. It prefers to maintain the illusion that you're already rational, that your beliefs are already fact-based, that your decisions are already logical, because awareness of your irrationality threatens your confidence in yourself and your ability to make decisions. The rationality myth protects you from paralyzing self-doubt, but it also makes you vulnerable to manipulation, self-deception, and poor decisions. The most rational thing you can do is accept that you're not rational, that your thinking is fundamentally emotional, and that rationality is an aspiration, not a description of how your mind actually works. This is the seventh level of survival lies, the rationality myth that conceals the emotional foundation of all your beliefs and decisions. You wake up every morning with absolute certainty that you're the author of your actions, that you can choose what to do, what to say, how to respond, that your will is free and your decisions result from conscious choice. This belief in free will is so fundamental to your self-concept that you've never seriously questioned it. But it's a lie. Perhaps the most necessary and most carefully guarded lie of all the ones your brain tells you. The truth is that your actions are determined by a chain of cause and effect that began long before your birth. Every decision you make is the inevitable result of your genetics, upbringing, brain chemistry, hormonal state, recent experiences, and thousands of other factors you didn't choose and don't control. Neuroscience shows that your brain makes decisions seconds or even minutes before consciousness becomes aware of those decisions. What you experience as choice is actually awareness of a decision that has already been made by unconscious processes. But your brain cannot let you know this. Belief in free will is absolutely necessary for functioning. Without it, you couldn't make decisions, take responsibility for your actions, plan for the future, or maintain social relationships. So your brain creates an elaborate illusion of choice. This illusion works through several mechanisms. First, your brain hides the decision-making process from you. You don't see the complex neural activity that determines your actions. You only see the end result, the feeling that you decided to act a certain way. It's like watching a clock and seeing only the movement of hands, not the mechanism inside. The movement seems magical, spontaneous, free. Second, your brain creates a sense of effort when making complex decisions. When you're torn between options, you feel mental strain, internal struggle, a process of weighing. This feeling of effort convinces you that you're actively choosing. But this feeling of effort isn't a sign of free will. It's a sign of conflict between different unconscious systems in your brain. You're feeling the struggle between competing impulses, each of which was generated by deterministic processes. Third, your brain gives you the sense that you could have done differently, When you look back at past decisions, it seems obvious that you had alternatives at that moment, that you chose one path from many possible ones. But this is a retrospective illusion. At the moment of decision, given the exact state of your brain and environment, you could only have acted one way. The sense of alternatives is a product of imagination that reconstructs the past with incomplete information. Your brain also maintains the free will illusion through language. You say, I decided, I chose, I want, as if there's some central I that makes decisions. But this central I doesn't exist. Your brain is a collection of different systems that sometimes cooperate, sometimes compete. Decisions emerge from the interaction of these systems, but there's no single controller making them. First-person language creates the illusion of a unified agent, but it's a grammatical convention, not a description of reality. American culture strongly reinforces the free will fantasy through its emphasis on individual responsibility. Our legal system, moral framework, and daily social interactions are all built on the assumption that people choose their behavior. This social support makes the free will illusion even more convincing. If everyone around you acts as if they have free will and treats you as if you have free will, it's easy to believe it really exists. But the most powerful way your brain maintains the free will illusion is by creating the sense that you're the author of your thoughts. When an idea occurs to you, it seems spontaneous, original, created by your consciousness. But thoughts arise automatically, as the result of neural processes you don't control. You don't choose which thoughts will come to mind. They simply appear, and then you take ownership of them. Try right now to think of something completely original. Where did that thought come from? You didn't consciously create it, it just arose. But you automatically feel like you're its author. This illusion of authorship extends to all your mental processes. You feel like you control your attention, emotions, memories. But all of these happen automatically, and the sense of control is added after the fact. The free will fantasy also shows up in how you think about habits and addictions. When you try to change behavior and fail, you blame yourself for lacking willpower, as if will were a muscle that could be strengthened through exercise. But habits and addictions are controlled by neural circuits that operate automatically. Conscious intention to change behavior is just one factor in a complex system, and often not the most influential one. When change doesn't happen, it's not a sign of weak will. It's a sign that unconscious systems are stronger than conscious intentions. The deepest aspect of the free will fantasy concerns moral responsibility. If your actions are determined by factors outside your control, how can you be responsible for them? How can it be fair to punish people for what they couldn't help doing? Your brain can't let you fully confront these questions because they undermine the foundations of morality and social order. So it maintains belief in moral responsibility through belief in free will. But the truth is that moral responsibility is a useful fiction, not a metaphysical fact. We treat people as if they're responsible for their actions not because they actually are, but because this treatment creates better social outcomes. Punishment and reward influence future behavior even if past behavior was determined. So the system of moral responsibility works even if its philosophical foundations are false. The free will fantasy isn't just a philosophical illusion, it's a psychological necessity. People who lose belief in free will often become passive, amoral, depressed. So your brain protects this lie at all costs. It creates a complex system of illusions that maintain the feeling of agency, choice, and control. Even when you learn about determinism intellectually, the emotional belief in free will remains intact. Your brain compartmentalizes intellectual knowledge from emotional experience to preserve the functional illusion. This is the 8th level of survival lies, the free will fantasy that allows you to feel like an agent in a deterministic universe. Right now, you believe you're conscious, not just awake, conscious, aware, present, experiencing this moment directly. You feel like there's a you sitting behind your eyes, observing thoughts, making decisions, experiencing life. This sense of unified consciousness feels so self-evident that questioning it seems absurd, but it's an illusion. One of the most sophisticated lies your brain tells you. The truth is that consciousness isn't a single, unified stream of awareness. It's a collection of separate processes happening in different parts of your brain. with no central observer unifying them. What you call consciousness is more like a committee with no chairperson or an orchestra with no conductor. Right now, different parts of your brain are processing visual information, monitoring your body, generating emotions, forming memories, planning actions, and constructing the narrative voice you think of as you. These processes don't report to a central consciousness. They just happen simultaneously. But your brain cannot let you experience this fragmentation directly. A committee consciousness would be confusing and inefficient for survival, so it creates the illusion of a unified self that seems to be in charge of everything. This illusion works through what neuroscientists call the interpreter, a system in your brain that constantly creates stories to explain what you're experiencing. When different parts of your brain produce conflicting information, the interpreter weaves it into a coherent narrative. You don't experience raw neural activity. You experience the interpreter's story about that activity. Consider what happens when you make a decision. You feel like a unified you weighs options and chooses. But brain scans show that different neural systems activate in sequence. Emotion centers first, then memory systems, then motor preparation areas, and finally the areas associated with conscious awareness. By the time you feel like you're deciding, the decision has already been made by unconscious processes. The sense of conscious choice is the interpreter's story about neural events that have already concluded. The consciousness conspiracy extends to your sense of being present in this moment. You feel like you're experiencing now, hearing these words as they happen, thinking these thoughts in real time. But consciousness has a significant delay. By the time you're aware of anything, it has already been processed by multiple brain systems over hundreds of milliseconds. What you experience as now is actually a carefully constructed summary of the recent past. Your brain hides this delay because being aware of it would make consciousness feel less immediate and authoritative. The illusion of unified consciousness also affects how you understand your emotions. You feel like emotions happen to you, like there's a central self that experiences anger, sadness, or joy. But emotions are produced by specialized brain circuits that operate independently of whatever you call you. They arise automatically based on unconscious processing of your situation, then get interpreted by the consciousness-generating systems. You don't have emotions. Emotions happen, and then the interpreter creates a story about you experiencing them. American culture particularly reinforces the consciousness conspiracy through its emphasis on the individual self. We believe in personal autonomy, self-determination, and individual identity, as if these were objective features of reality rather than useful social constructions. But the self that exercises autonomy, determines its fate, and maintains identity is a story your brain tells, not an actual entity. You can't find the self anywhere in the brain, just as you can't find the weather, even though you can find clouds, wind, and precipitation. The consciousness conspiracy becomes especially obvious during altered states. Under anesthesia, during meditation, or with certain psychoactive substances, the usual sense of unified consciousness can fragment or disappear entirely. These experiences reveal that normal consciousness isn't a fundamental feature of awareness. It's a particular configuration that your brain creates under specific conditions. When those conditions change, consciousness changes or vanishes. But your brain interprets these altered states as abnormal, temporary departures from real consciousness, rather than glimpses of consciousness's constructed nature. Memory plays a crucial role in maintaining the consciousness conspiracy. Your sense of being a continuous self depends on remembering previous experiences as happening to you. But memory is also constructed. Each time you remember something, you're not accessing a stored recording but rebuilding the experience from fragments. The you who remembers being 5 years old has almost nothing in common with the 5-year-old, except some shared memories and a continuous story. Every cell in your body has been replaced. Your personality has changed dramatically. Your beliefs and values have evolved. Yet the interpreter maintains the illusion that there's been a continuous you throughout all these changes. The consciousness conspiracy also affects how you think about other people. You assume that everyone else has unified consciousness like you do. When someone acts inconsistently, You think they're being dishonest or confused rather than recognizing that they, like you, are multiple systems without central coordination. This assumption makes human behavior seem more predictable and comprehensible than it actually is. Perhaps the deepest aspect of the consciousness conspiracy is the illusion of free will we discussed earlier. The sense of being a unified self naturally leads to the feeling that this self makes choices and controls actions. But if there's no unified self, who or what would exercise free will? The consciousness conspiracy and the free will fantasy support each other. You need a central self to make free choices, and you need free choices to justify having a central self. The consciousness conspiracy serves important functions. It creates a sense of responsibility and accountability necessary for social cooperation. It provides psychological continuity that enables long-term planning and goal pursuit. It simplifies the complexity of mental life into manageable narratives. But it also creates problems. It makes you overestimate your self-knowledge and self-control. It leads to unrealistic expectations about consistency and rational behavior. It can generate unnecessary guilt when you act in ways that don't match your self-concept. The truth is that you're not one person. You're a community of mental processes that sometimes work together and sometimes conflict. Understanding this doesn't diminish your humanity. It reveals how remarkably sophisticated your brain is at creating the illusion of unified experience from chaotic neural activity. This is the 9th level of survival lies, the consciousness conspiracy that creates a unified self from a multitude of independent processes. The most powerful and necessary lie, your brain tells you every second of your life concerns death. Not the abstract death that happens to other people in the distant future, but your own death, which could occur at any moment. Right now, listening to these words, you are a few heartbeats away from non-existence. A blood clot in your brain, a ruptured aneurysm, cardiac arrest, and you would cease to be. Forever. Every breath you take could be your last. Every heartbeat could be final. Your brain knows this, but it cannot let you fully realize it, because complete awareness of death's proximity would be paralyzing. So it creates the most sophisticated and comprehensive denial system in human psychology. This system operates on multiple levels. At the most basic level, your brain creates the illusion of duration. It convinces you that you have time, lots of time, that death is in the distant future, that you'll live for decades more. But this confidence isn't based on facts. It's based on psychological necessity. Nobody knows how much time they have left. Life expectancy statistics are just averages that don't predict individual fate. Your brain transforms statistical probabilities into personal guarantees because uncertainty about death's timing is unbearable. Another denial mechanism is projecting death onto others. Every day you hear about people who died, but your brain automatically finds reasons why their death doesn't apply to you. He was older. She had an unhealthy lifestyle. That was a freak accident that won't happen again. Every other person's death becomes proof that your death is different, more distant, less likely. Your brain also creates lies about consciousness continuity. It convinces you that your self will somehow continue existing after death. Not necessarily in a religious sense. Even atheists often have a vague sense that their consciousness can't simply vanish. This intuition is based on never having experienced absence of consciousness. Even during sleep or anesthesia, when you wake up, it feels like your self was somewhere in the background. The idea of complete cessation of consciousness lies beyond your experience and imagination. So your brain creates stories about what happens after: heaven, reincarnation, merging with the universe, or simple continuation in another form. These stories may not match your rational beliefs, but they satisfy the emotional need for continuity. American culture supports death denial through rituals and traditions that minimize its finality. Funerals focus on celebrating life rather than confronting decomposition. The dead are remembered as if memory could somehow preserve their existence. Modern society is particularly effective at hiding death. People die in hospitals, away from daily life. Corpses are hidden. The decomposition process is sanitized. The physical reality of death becomes abstract. As a result, death seems like something that happens in another world, not an inevitable part of this world. Your brain also uses projects and plans to deny death. It makes you create long-term goals, plan years ahead, invest in the future. This activity creates the illusion that you have guaranteed time to realize these plans. The more plans you have, the more immortal you feel. Planning is a form of death denial that masquerades as practicality. The deepest level of death denial concerns meaning. Your brain convinces you that your life has significance that will outlast your death, that your achievements, your children, your contributions to the world create a form of immortality. But the truth is that everything is eventually forgotten. Your children will die. Your achievements will be erased by time. The civilization that remembers you will disappear. Even the sun will burn out, and the universe will reach heat death. In cosmic scales, your existence is a moment that will leave no trace. Your brain cannot let you fully realize this reality because it would destroy all motivation for action. So it creates illusions of significance that extend beyond individual life. Death denial also manifests an obsessive focus on health and safety. You wear seatbelts, eat healthy food, exercise, get medical checkups, all creating the illusion of control over death. These actions can reduce some risks, but they can't eliminate the fundamental vulnerability of human existence. The healthiest people die of cancer. The most careful people die in accidents. But your brain interprets healthy habits as protection from death, not just as ways of reducing certain risks. Technological progress amplifies death denial through promises of life extension. Every medical breakthrough is interpreted as a step toward defeating death. Talk of gene therapy, nanotechnology, consciousness uploading creates fantasies of achievable immortality. These fantasies allow you to avoid confronting the reality of finitude by projecting the solution to death onto a technological future. But perhaps the most insidious aspect of death denial is how it makes you less alive. Fear of death makes you avoid risks, postpone experiences, live cautiously and superficially. The paradox is that trying to avoid death often means avoiding life. Full acceptance of mortality, on the other hand, can be liberating. When you truly understand that your time is limited and uncertain, every moment becomes precious. Trivial concerns lose importance. Authentic experiences become priority. But your brain resists this acceptance with every tool available. It prefers the comfortable lie of immortality to the painful truth of mortality. Because the truth about death isn't just that you will die. The truth is that you are dying right now. Every second brings you closer to the end. Every word you hear uses up part of your limited time. This truth is too intense for daily life. So your brain wraps it in layers of denial, distraction, and illusion. The immortality deception also affects how you relate to others. You assume that the people you love will be there tomorrow, next week, next year. You postpone difficult conversations, delay expressions of affection, take relationships for granted because death feels distant and abstract. But everyone around you is also dying. Your parents are aging toward death. Your friends are accumulating the damage that will eventually kill them. Even young, healthy people carry genetic time bombs that could explode without warning. Your brain hides this reality because living with constant awareness of universal mortality would make relationships too painful to maintain. The deception extends to your daily choices. You spend time on trivial pursuits, worry about minor problems, invest energy in long-term concerns as if you had unlimited time. You plan retirement as if you're guaranteed to reach old age. You save money as if you'll definitely be alive to spend it. These behaviors make sense only if death is distant and predictable. But death is neither distant nor predictable. It's always present and always surprising. Your brain maintains the planning illusion because accepting the randomness of death's timing would make future-oriented behavior impossible. The immortality deception also shapes your understanding of pain and suffering. When you or someone you love gets sick, your brain immediately starts generating scenarios for recovery, treatment, and return to normal life. But sometimes there is no recovery. Sometimes illness is the beginning of the dying process, not a temporary setback. Sometimes pain is your body starting to break down permanently, not a problem to be solved. Your brain resists this reality because accepting the irreversibility of some suffering would be too devastating to bear. Perhaps the cruelest aspect of the immortality deception is how it affects your relationship with aging. Your brain convinces you that getting older is about gradual decline rather than preparation for death. You focus on staying young, fighting aging, maintaining vitality as if these efforts could indefinitely postpone the inevitable. But aging isn't decay. It's dying. Every gray hair, every wrinkle, every ache is evidence that your body is slowly shutting down. Your brain reframes these signs as cosmetic problems rather than mortality reminders, because the truth would be too frightening to face daily. The deception becomes most obvious when death comes close. Terminal illness, near-death experiences, or the death of someone close can temporarily shatter the illusion. In these moments, you might glimpse how thoroughly you've been living in denial. But even then, your brain works quickly to rebuild the protective barriers. It finds ways to make the experience feel exceptional, temporary, not applicable to normal life. Religion offers some of the most sophisticated death denial systems. Beliefs in afterlife, resurrection, or spiritual continuation provide elaborate frameworks for avoiding the finality of death. But secular culture has its own forms of immortality fantasies. Legacy, reputation, contribution to human progress. All ways of believing that some part of you will survive your biological end. These beliefs aren't based on evidence. They're based on the psychological impossibility of accepting complete extinction. The immortality deception serves crucial functions. It enables long-term thinking, relationship formation, cultural development, and meaning creation. Without it, human civilization would be impossible, but it also prevents you from living with full awareness of life's preciousness. It makes you waste time, avoid difficult truths, and postpone authentic living. The healthiest approach might be what philosophers call memento mori, remembering death not to become morbid, but to become more alive. Accepting mortality not to become depressed, but to become present. When you truly accept that this conversation will end, that today will end, that your life will end, every moment becomes infinitely valuable. Every breath becomes a gift. Every experience becomes unrepeatable and precious. But your brain will fight this acceptance because living with death awareness requires a kind of courage that evolution didn't necessarily select for. The immortality deception is the final and most fundamental survival lie. It allows you to live as if you're permanent in a world where everything is temporary. And perhaps that's exactly the kind of beautiful, necessary self-deception that makes human life possible in a universe where life itself is impossible. This is the 10th and final level of survival lies, the immortality deception that lets you live fully by helping you forget that you're dying. If these revelations have shattered your world, remember that your brain is already working to integrate them safely. Some truths are too large to carry constantly, and that too is perfectly human.